everybody, it's Miranda here from the Graphic 45 design team, and today's video is all about the paper scraps, using your paper scraps in creative ways, and then also how to store your paper scraps. So what I have here is an Altered Matchbook Box by Graphic 45, and this is the Altered Art 12x12 one, and this is what it looks like normally. It comes like this, and it has a big area right here. What I did on mine is I actually covered this up and then even used the back of it after that, so I just left this part out of mine. There's so many creative ways you guys can use these. So I'm using mine to store scraps now, and it's perfect for me because I really needed a way to organize them. I have a system which I'll show you at the end of this video on how I've always stored my scraps, but this allows for an even bigger way to store them. And if you're messy and you just want to open the drawer up and throw your scraps in there, that's perfectly fine too, because I did that for a very long time. But for me, since being on the Graphic 45 design team, I have a ton of scraps now because I'm always using the paper. So what I did here is I used 3 different collections. Secret Garden has been my favorite collection, one of them, since it came out, and I have used so many paper pads of it, so I had an extreme amount of scraps, you know, some big, some tiny. I keep all of my scraps. And then I also used a bit of A Lady's Diary, and then also a little bit of Les Romantiques, tiny bit, and then also some Mother Goose. That's the new collection, and it's just amazing. So I used all of these scraps together, and I have a whole process on how I created this box, you guys, and it may look like it was complicated, but I'm telling you it's not. You guys will see for yourselves just how easy it is. And in the process of doing this box, I do go through 3 different techniques of using your paper scraps. So these flowers you see up here, this is one different technique. On the background behind that, which you can't really see so much, is another technique. And then also the sides and tops and stuff of the box with this embossed paper scrap is another technique. And this is definitely my most used and maybe my favorite way to use paper scraps up until I did this. And this was totally inspired by the cupcakes that I make, you guys. I'm sure you guys have seen them. I have a tutorial on them. And I was kind of stumped on which direction I was going to go. I was tossing around a few ideas on how I could use up I really wanted to use like all of my paper scraps. I wanted to just start fresh with this Secret Garden collection and not have an entire thing full of scraps. So this is what I came up with, and I'm telling you guys, it's super fun. All you need is a paper punched. I use this one right here. It's the EK Success one, and it's a small one. It's about almost like 3/4 of an inch. It's not a very big punch at all. So all you literally have to do is just punch flowers, you guys, and adhere them down. It's that easy. I did go in and add pearls to the center of some of them. So I will give you an overview really quickly. This is what it looks like. Of course, the pictures will probably do a little more justice than the video actually will. It is nighttime here and the lighting isn't that grand. So I did that all the way around, you guys. Over here I wanted to just kind of break it up. I wanted to wrap it like a package, and I wanted some way for the bow to kind of accentuate this area. So I took a big scrap of the Humpty Dumpty, or not Humpty Dumpty, the Mother Goose paper, and it's got the music notes and stuff on it, like Hey Diddle Diddle. Absolutely love it. So I used that there to just kind of make a triangle, and I lined it with the Graphic 45 ornate metal keyholes, and I did glue. I always glue my ribbon down in maybe 1 or 2 spots just to kind of help it flow the way I want it to. So I did that over there, and then I basically just took this May Arts ribbon, and it's a satin wired ribbon, and I absolutely adore it. And I tied it all the way around my box and just pleated it over here in this direction. This is a little scrap tag. Again, I did front and back with the leftover part that I didn't use on the triangle, and I just have some Imaginarium chipboard alphas right there, and it just says scraps, you guys. So other than that, I did use the ornate metal keyhole just because I love it so much, and these do lend themselves to kind of go on bigger projects. I thought it was perfect on the 12x12 box to use the ornate metal keyhole. So other than that, you guys, I do have a little piece of clock here from A Lady's Diary. When I was going through my scraps, I had a randomly fussy cut one that I had already cut out. I refused to go into my paper stash. Cherie had gave me permission to use just a little bit of whole paper, but I challenged myself to not use any whole Graphic 45 paper. The only thing I did use on the inside, you'll see, is the one whole piece of the Coordinations cardstock that matches. Also up here, I did use an ornate label holder. And you can put, you know, whatever you want in there, scraps, you can label it however you want to, okay? So we're going to look at the inside of the box now and show you what I did there. Okay, so I kept the inside super simple, you guys. I didn't even decorate it. I just gessoed painted the entire thing and left it at that. I'm going to be using this all the time, so I didn't need it to be completely, you know, fancy and pretty. I needed it to be practical. So in here I needed to have room for more growth and everything. So quickly I'm going to show you guys my old method of storing scraps, which I will still definitely use for my 8x8 and stuff pads, but now I have a different way I'm going to do my 12x12s. But what I do is I take glassine bags, you guys, and I just adhere them to the back of the paper paper pad that I am using. And then from there, you can have all of your elements in there, your papers, your chipboard die cuts, everything, you guys, and it just matches perfectly on there. And if it is like an 8x6 scrap, whatever you have, it will still tuck in there because these expand. So that is the way that I've done my scraps for quite a long time. So that's that idea, you guys. Let me grab this out of there really quickly. And for 12x12s, I was doing the same thing, but I was having a really hard time finding bags or anything to adhere to the back of it. So now what I've decided to do is I've taken these manila folders. You can get these at your office supply stores. These are 11.5 by 8 inches, you guys. They're very, very large manila envelopes, so they are perfect for our paper scraps. So what I've done here is I've just divided it into 3 sections using these manila envelopes, and of course covered these with scrap paper too. I'm going to do like my pastel-ish type colors, my pretty pinks and blues and light colors like that, creams and stuff in this folder. And then the next one is going to be for darks, neutrals, browns, blacks, you know, stuff like that, beiges, everything that goes in that kind of category. And then back here is going to be more my primary colors, like my deep blues, deep reds, you know, deep greens, stuff like that. So I've just got it divided into 3 categories like that. And I was actually thinking from there I can go in and separate them even more because these manila envelopes are really large. They give you a lot of storage. Okay, so I used the top of one for these tabs up here that I added on the folders. This is actually just one whole tag, and I just trimmed little pieces off, and then I traced this shape up here onto the other ones and cut it out to mimic the same tag, but really it's not like a full 3 tags. I can't waste my tags like that. So for the folders, all I did to decorate them, you guys, really easy. I just used strips of scraps. I had some pretty big ones left over, so I used one there, but it wasn't quite enough, you know, of course, to cover the whole thing. And then I had this little scrap of Le Romantique, but it was still like this much short, so I had one little scrap of Birdsong that I had literally just used the other day. So I just ran it along there just to kind of be a buffer, and I even left the Graphic 45 part on there because that totally is fine with me. I love doing stuff like that. This is a leftover bit from the Black Policy Envelope album, and I saved that, you guys. I saved these. I saved everything. These are wonderful for layouts and everything, so just tuck that on there. So when I started to adhere this down to cover it, I was like, well, Miranda, if you just adhere it on these sides, you can give yourself more pockets on the front to store more things, you know. So say you want to put your scraps in there and your die cuts up here, maybe your flower sheets, whatever, you know, you have 3 different ways to separate things now. So this back one right here is a pocket, a really decent sized pocket, and then this one is a pocket as well. So that's one way you can do your envelopes, you guys, if you choose to. And then this one is kind of the same premise, but I just took another one of those little vintage bags and adhered it there because I do like try to keep my chipboard die cuts that they send us, or chipboard, you know, coordinating ones for the different pattern papers. I like to keep those separate because I'll punch them out a lot, and then if I don't use them, I don't want to try to like fit them back into the place where they're supposed to go. I want to keep them somewhere where I can just grab them out, and then every time I do a project with that paper line, the first thing I do is get out my scrap chipboard elements every single time to try to use them up. So I figured it'd be easier for me to keep them in a place like this instead of in there kind of lost with all the other papers. So that's one way, and this was the one that I did use a whole sheet of coordinations cardstock, but I really could have used scraps on this, y'all, but I just decided not to. So I did use one piece, you guys, don't kill me. On this one I used predominantly Birdsong, and I had a scrap of the coordinations paper. It was all torn just like this, so it was perfect. I had a strip about this big of the blue paper, and I just adhered it down. And then when I was adhering this down, I thought the same thing. Well, if you just glue the sides of it right here, you'll give yourself an additional pocket. So you can put your die cuts up there and everything like that. I don't have too many of the Birdsonger in this color family that much right now. So, but this is a pocket as well. So you have so many options for storage inside of here, you guys. You guys can really go to town. This thing will hold everything. I'm telling you, this thing is 12 by 12, a little bit over. So your 12 by 12 scraps, everything will fit in there, you guys. So those are the ideas that I came up with for storing my scraps. And above these tabs, I did use a couple of ornate metal keys just because I can't get away from the staples. I use them on everything. And I also use some scrap ribbon as well. I always keep little pieces of ribbon exactly for this purpose, for tying on my tags and stuff. So this is what I came up with, you guys. Please let me know what you think. I hope that you guys found some useful information and some ways to stay organized. And now I will go into the tutorial on how I actually created the outside of the box, and I hope you guys will watch. Have a beautiful day. So I'm getting started here, y'all, by just grabbing my box and taking it apart and grabbing the bin that I have put all those paper scraps into. I had some steampunk in there and everything, but I just decided to go ahead and stick with the same color family. So I'm going to gesso my entire box first. Typically I just pay attention to the edges, but I really wanted to just thoroughly cover this because I wasn't sure if I was going to do the step you're going to see in a minute. so I wanted to go ahead and give myself a nice good background. So I'm putting a really liberal amount of gesso on there all the way around. Of course, I just kind of edit out most of it because it's just tedious, but I'm just gessoing the entire thing, inside and outside and all of the edges. And this just gives you a really good surface to work with, and all of your edges are nice and clean and white instead of that craft color. But if you like the craft color, you can stick with that as well. And I'm just using a foam brush to do that. I find it really reaches up on the inside of it much better than a regular paintbrush for me. Okay, so basically I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to use your scraps to create things. This first one is probably the easiest one, and it's very, very basic. This is a wonderful way to do mixed media backgrounds for canvases and everything. It's just a really wonderful technique. So I'm just grabbing all of those scraps. Predominantly I'm using a Lady's Diary and Secret Garden, but you'll see me throw in a little bit of Le Romantique and a little bit of Mother Goose as well. So I'm just taking out all of these scraps, you guys. I think I grabbed just enough to cover the outside of it. I'm kind of gauging how much I'm going to need. You can see my scraps vary in size. It really does not matter, you guys. And then I'm going to start tearing them into even smaller chunks. And this is just basically decoupaging this to cover it. You could use the same color paper, but I'm just using all different ones. Also, I didn't show this step, but after you get it all adhered down, if you go over it with gesso, it really creates such a wonderful, pretty blended background, you guys. This is just a wonderful, easy technique. Okay, so I'm just taking all my scraps out, tearing them into smaller ones, and I'm going to grab my Mod Podge and a paintbrush to start decoupaging everything down. Okay, and I'm just using Mod Podge Matte. I'm not a fan of the gloss because I like a nice, clean, matte, non-shiny surface, so that's what works best for me. I'm just going to start in my corners. If I have a straight edge, you know, from the cut paper, I'll line that up, and then the torn edges, I'll just start filling them in on the inner parts of the box. But this is a 12 by 12 box, so you'll see me did a lot of covering on here, so I kind of sped it up and edited it out. But all I'm doing is placing these scraps down, you guys, and adhering them down, and then going on top of them with Mod Podge until I get the entire thing covered. Okay, once I get that done, you can see in just a second when I move these scraps what it will look like. But now I'm taking the rest of my scraps and I am using just a small EK Success flower punch that I had, you guys. Any flower die or flower punch would work wonderful for this technique. And like I said, what inspired me to do this was the cupcakes that I had been making. I just thought that a box completely covered in flowers, layers of flowers, would just look absolutely beautiful. So I'm just cutting out flowers with my punch, and I'll just kind of go, I try to make as much out of one piece of paper that I can, put them as close together as I can, and then cut around them, so I really take advantage of every last bit of scrap. So you could go fast or just kind of randomly punch quickly, but I really try to take my time and not waste any of that paper. Our graphic 45 paper is sacred, you guys. But you'll see the background there of what all the paper decoupage looks like, and that's a wonderful start for anything mixed media, you guys. It's so much texture and stuff, and you could just paint on top of it and go from there. The reason I did it is because at first you'll see me kind of change my mind a few times in this video on some small details of this box, but at first I didn't think I was going to cover the entire thing with the flowers. I didn't think I had enough scrap paper, but it turned out that I did. So, but I went ahead and did the background like that, so if my paper flowers fell short anywhere, my background would still be nice and covered and pretty with the same paper. Okay, so now I'm taking a scrap of Mother Goose paper, and I wanted to have kind of like a triangle on one edge of it with that music note paper, just to kind of break up the monotony of the flowers. So I'm cutting that out, and you'll see in a minute it'll be covered with lace. I do end up going in and cutting that off as well. Like I said, I kind of changed my mind a few times. And like right here, I'm running a piece of lace down the center to put my doorknob on, the ornate doorknob from Graphic 45. It's one of my favorite staples they've ever made. I was going to put the doorknob on top of that, but you'll see in the end I end up covering up the lace with the flowers as well. But there's still a few places you can see it. So to adhere my doorknob down, I'm using E6000. It's the strongest adhesive I know of, and I'm putting little dots of hot glue just to hold it in place while the E6000 dries. So now you'll see I added some pink lace there, but I end up taking that out as well and adding the ornate metal keyholes. Okay, so here comes the fun part, you guys, and it's really not as time consuming as you may think. It's just all you're doing is taking those flowers that you punched and adhering them down, and that is it, y'all. And I did shape all of the petals with my fingers. Just really quickly ran around them and bent them up and just kind of squeezed them together a little bit just to give them a little bit of definition. but by all means, that's a not necessary step. I'm just a perfectionist. So you can see here I'm just adding daubs of glue, and I have it in time lapse here at about 3 times the normal speed. So it's really not that time consuming, you guys. You just keep on adding the glue, and I'm using Fabri-Tac, and just sticking them down and clustering them together. Now when I'm done with the whole thing, you know, you can kind of go in and fill any gaps that you missed. And I also, again, this is not a necessary step, but I did go in and add pearls to the center of most of the flowers. Not all of them, but I'd say about 50-60% of them I added pearls to the center of. And adding this is just so, you guys, you can do this on anything. You can do this on cards, canvases, anything. Just a really, really fun technique to do, you guys, and just to really use all of your paper scraps. Like I said, you don't have to go with the same color family like I did, but I have so many paper scraps that I could. You know, maybe you don't have that many of the same color, so just feel free to use whatever you have on hand. Secret Garden has been a favorite collection of mine, so I did have a ton of scraps from that, and I saved the smallest scrap, you guys. If I know I can at least punch one little thing out with it, then I will save it. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going all the way around and adhering all of my little flowers down. Hopefully you guys can see. And of course the pictures nor video will do justice to just how dimensional this is. It really, really does look beautiful in real life. Okay, I'm going to jump ahead here in a minute. I realized, you know, I could do an hour video of me just adhering these down, so I just kind of skip ahead. You can see there. And I was going to do the sides and leave that lace part, you know, uncovered there in the center where the doorknob is, but you'll see later on I do end up going in and covering that up as well, because I did have enough scraps. I thought that I would run out, but it didn't really take as much as I thought it would to cover the entire thing. You could probably also use hot glue to adhere this down, which would be quicker than the Fabri-Tac, but I really wanted this to be sturdy and stand up well because I am storing my scraps in it. I'm going to be pulling it off my shelf, you know, back and forth a lot of times, and sometimes hot glue has been known to kind of flake off or, you know, not hold up that well over time, so. Okay, so I pretty much got it covered, except I do, like I said, cover up the lace part. So right now I'm going in and kind of filling out any blank areas. You know, some of these are 2 and 3 flowers piled on top of each other. Some of them are just one. Whichever way, they just kind of have their own natural flow, the way they'll kind of go together, which you guys will see when you try this technique out. And there it is, almost covered all the way. And I'm taking the ornate metal keyholes now, and I took that pink trim off, and I am just adhering them down. I just thought it made a really clean, pretty border. I'm a huge, huge fan of the staples, you guys. So even though I'm using like all scrap paper, I'm still pulling out some of my wonderful embellishments from Graphic 45 just to kind of polish it off, because just because it's made of scraps does not mean it cannot be beautiful. So I just really wanted to pull it all together by using the staples. And you can see the lace there on top of that Mother Goose paper. That's one of my favorite sheets out of the pad. I'm a huge music note lover, but I do end up taking that lace off as well because I thought the paper just looked better all by itself. It didn't need anything extra. And again, I'm using E6000 to adhere these down as well, you guys. It's a really strong adhesive for metal. Okay, and in just a second I'm going to get my big shot out here, you'll see, and I'll start embossing all of my paper scraps. I'm just using a Tim Holtz embossing folder. You can use any one you want, and this is probably the most used technique for using scraps that I do. This technique is just wonderful for so many purposes, especially for covering curved surfaces, anything round like a pot or a vase or, you know, gumball machine, anything that you could possibly be altering that has a curved surface that's not flat. If you've noticed, you can't really adhere your paper around it. So people ask me all the time how I get mine to look so seamless, and this is the method right here. I just emboss my little scraps of paper and then tear them down to smaller pieces, basically the same way as the first step that we did. The only difference is that this is embossed, and it makes all the difference in the world, you guys. You'll see the difference. I'll show you. You'll see some pictures of it. It just looks wonderful, and I'm using 3 different kinds of papers, although they're all pink. You know, Graphic 45 pretty much matches their colors perfectly from collection to collection. So because they're all pink, they just match together, and it doesn't even look like it's a different paper line. They just go seamlessly together. It's just a wonderful technique, you guys. This is definitely my most used technique for using scraps. I'm sorry that I go off frame a little bit. I wasn't really aware of lifting it up, how far away from the camera I was, but I'm just adhering it down there, you guys, and I'm using Aleene's tacky glue to do so, and I'll put a little bit down and then I'll rub and smooth the glue out with my finger, and then I'll just use kind of a paper towel to make sure it's pressed on there really, really well. So next time you guys are doing anything with a curved surface or just want to use some scraps up, this is a wonderful technique. You will see me use this quite a bit on my videos. So that's the third way to use your scraps to kind of create something unique, you guys, but there's so many other ways. And you can see there, that was just a teeny-tiny little scrap of paper. You can really use up some small, tiny scraps this way, y'all. Alright, you can see there, of course, kind of how it came together, but the picture will do more justice than that. And now I'm taking a little shipping tag that I had in my stash, putting a little bit of glue on it, and I'm adhering it to some more of that music note paper from Mother Goose. I had another little scrap left, and I'm just placing it down and then cutting around it, and I'll do that on both sides as well. And that's just going to be my tag that says scraps. So that's basically it, you guys. If you have any questions on anything I did, just leave me a comment down below. And now I'll go into a little part about the finished product A, and then B, another little way to store your scraps on the back of your paper pads. So stay tuned for that. It lasts like 30 seconds, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye, y'all.